Nope. Excuse me, sorry to bother you, but there's a newt.
A newt?
It only lives in one lake in the whole entire world. And the crayfish are eating all its babies. And we need 1,000 signatures.
Where do I sign?
That's my daughter, Little. She's 5. We were at a diner in Bend, Oregon, the morning after we'd spent the day at Crater Lake. This is how it ended. Let's back up to where our trip started and why we're going table to table, talking to people about saving a species. I'm Erica, and these are my kids,
Big
and
Little.
Our brains work best when we're moving, when we can touch things, when we can ask questions the second we think of them. Traditional classrooms weren't really built for us, so we're roam schooling, learning our way through all 63 national parks, one trail at a time.
Are we there yet?
See that sign? We're almost at Crater Lake National Park. 2 more miles to the rim.
My ears popping.
That's 7,000 feet. We're almost at the top.
Why is it getting colder? It's summer.
Up here, summer lasts about 3 months. The rest of the year, this road is buried under 20 feet of snow. Everything you see out your window right now, those dark hemlocks, that pumice gravel on the shoulder of the road, it's completely buried from October all the way to June.
20 feet? That's more than 3 mofas tall.
Mofa is what we call our grandpa, and he's 6 feet tall. So we always measure everything that's big in mofas.
3 mofas standing on each other's head?
Crazy, right? Okay, before we get to the lake, I need to tell you how this place works. Crater Lake is not like a lot of parks where you drive to a main entrance and then there's a whole bunch of different places to explore and drive to. The park sits on the rim of an old volcano, a caldera, and the whole park is basically just that rim. One road runs in a loop around the edge. It's called Rim Drive, and it's 33 miles of pavement with the lake on one side and the forest on the other. That's it. That's the park. Today, we're going to learn a few different things. We're going to hear the original Native American creation story and how it dovetails with the scientific record of the volcano. We're going to learn about what makes this place so unique, and we're going to learn about the tireless activism of one man who helped create this national park in the first place.
And then we're going to tell you about the newt.
Oh, yes. We can't forget about the newts. We've been studying them for weeks, and we're launching a new campaign to raise awareness for their preservation.
And we need your help.
All right. First, let's go actually look at the lake. All right. Everybody out.
It looks like watercolors. Whoa.
I know, guys.
But why? I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Let's start at the very beginning. Now, before there was a lake here, there was a mountain, a volcano, 12,000 feet tall, maybe even higher, taller than almost anything in Oregon today. The Klamath people, who have lived on this land since long before any of this was a park, called this place Giwas. And they were here when the mountain was still standing. Their ancestors watched what happened to it. For 7,000 years, they've been teaching their children that story. But I don't want you to hear it from me. I want you to hear it from a real Klamath voice. While searching on YouTube, I found a filmmaker named Max Savage who is capturing the oral history of his mom. She was a longtime historian for the Klamath tribes.
My name's Barbara Alatorre. I'm a member of the Klamath tribe.
Keep in mind that this story we're about to hear is the oral history of the Klamath, passed down from parent to child through generations. Legend says there were 2 spirits, Lau, the bad spirit, who lived in the below world, and Skell, the good spirit, who ruled from the sky. And here's Barbara's retelling of this story, as shared with her own son.
The bad spirit wanted the land, wanted to take the chief's daughter, so he tried to take the daughter, and our good Kumukums saved the land from him because he was destroying it, for the daughter would not go with him. So they had a big fight between the 2 spirits from mountaintop to mountaintop. They stood from the big mountain that before Crater Lake was formed. He stood atop that, and our Kumugum's good spirit stood on Mount Shasta. started a big fight to save our land, and they rumbled and roared and fought so hard that all the rocks and everything moved underground, and had a big volcano there. Crater Lake exploded, and they had such a big fight that Kumukums had to push the big bad spirit back down his hole and shut him in with big rocks. But the Klamaths were hiding in the lake while the big volcano was going, and they hid there until it was safe to come out again. That's how the crater exploded at that time.
The people fled to Klamath Lake, about 30 miles southeast of here, when the mountain started to burn. They waded in and stayed there in the cold water while the mountain above them destroyed itself.
So the Klamath people were watching it from the lake?
They watched the sky turn orange, watched the ash fall. They watched Lau's Mountain, 12,000 feet tall, collapse into itself.
That's really scary.
It is. When scientists came here thousands of years after the eruption and started unearthing the geologic history of this place, here's what they found. There was a mountain here, at least 12,000 feet tall. When it erupted, it collapsed inward. 4,000 feet of peak just folded into the hollow space below. The eruption was 50 times more powerful than Mount St. Helens in 1980. Ash from the explosion landed in Canada, 600 miles away, and scientists think that the eruption rose 30 miles into the atmosphere.
How many buffers is that?
I have no idea. Tens of thousands, probably. The Klamath people didn't have words like caldera collapse or pyroclastic flow, but the story we just heard from Barbara described exactly what happened. A battle between forces that shook the earth.
So the story is also the science? Yeah.
It's a witness account. Over 7,000 years of it.
What is a witness account?
A witness account means the person who saw it is telling the story. The Klamath tribes are still here, still connected to Giwas, still teaching their children what happened on this mountain and what it means that it was taken and turned into a park for everyone else. We're so grateful to Barbara and Max Savage for giving us the opportunity to amplify their history. Now, let's fast forward to the lake today. Crater Lake is 6 miles across, almost 2,000 feet deep, and it's widely considered the clearest lake in the world, though to be fair, there are a few others that fight for that title. The water here is so clear that in 1994, scientists lowered a black and white disc into it to measure the visibility.
The ranger we just met told us that was called a Secchi disc. It's the kind of test you do in lakes to see how far down you can still see the disc.
Yeah, how clear it is. In most lakes, you lose it at 10, maybe 15 feet. In really clear lakes, maybe like 30.
How deep can you see it here?
Well, back in 1997, they recorded a clarity measurement to a depth of 142 feet. That was a world record.
It's over 20 MOFAs.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's learn. Why is it so blue? Think about the lakes you've gone swimming in. What was in that water besides just H2O?
Dirt, algae, dead leaves, probably fish poop.
Exactly. Rivers carry sediment, also some sand and silt. Rain washes chemicals off the road, animals leave their waste, plants decompose. All of that stuff makes the water murky. But this lake has no rivers. Nothing flows in and nothing flows out. The only water that enters is rain and snow falling from the sky.
So it's basically just liquid clouds.
Yes. And here's what we need to know now. Did you know that water is actually a color trap?
Sunlight is actually every color at once. It's the whole rainbow mixed together. As it travels down through the water, water filters the colors one by one.
Right. Red first, then orange, then yellow, then green. Those wavelengths go in and they don't come back out.
But blue is the one color it can't.
Oh, it slips through. keeps working its way back towards the surface, back towards your eyes. So what you're seeing isn't really the water. It's just the only color that survived 2,000 feet of the purest filter on Earth.
I want to drink it.
You could. It's that clean. Okay. Now, let's tell our listeners the story of how this place became a national park, because that did not happen easily. Picture this. It's 1870. There's a 15-year-old kid named William Gladstone Steel. He's in Kansas, not anywhere near here. The lore goes, he's eating his lunch. His sandwich is wrapped in newspaper, which is just what people did before to-go bags existed.
And while he's eating, he starts reading the wrapping. A sandwich wrapper?
And there's an article in his sandwich wrapper about a mysterious blue lake in Oregon, so deep that no one had measured the bottom, so pure that it looked like sapphires. And Steele reads this, sitting in Kansas with maybe mustard and mayo on his fingers, and he thinks, I have to see that place. Now, whether this story is exactly true, I can't prove. What's true is that Steele spent the next 15 years trying to find out where this lake actually was and how to get there. He asked everyone. He couldn't find it on any map.
He lost it.
I know, right? In 1870, this part of Oregon was barely mapped. There were no roads here. Almost no settlers had come this far into the Cascades. The Klamath people knew where it was. They'd always known, but they weren't exactly advertising it. Finally, in the summer of 1885, when Steele was 30 years old, he made the journey. He took the train to Medford, stagecoach to Fort Klamath, and then 20 miles on foot through the mountains.
He hiked there?
Yeah, and he stood on this rim right here, and he looked down into that blue water. And later he wrote, an overmastering conviction came to me that this wonderful spot must be saved, wild and beautiful, just as it was for all future generations, and that it was up to me to do something. I, then and there, had the impression in some way, I did not know how, that the lake ought to become a national park. So he started fighting.
He wrote letters, over 1,000 of them.
1,000 letters to newspapers and magazines all across the country, asking them to write in favor of the lake, to every member of Congress, to the president. And he started a petition. And within a year, it landed in Washington, D.C., signed by 120 of the most important people in Oregon. He organized expeditions to survey and map the lake. He wrote a whole book called The Mountains of Oregon, and mailed copies to every single member of Congress and to the president's entire cabinet. He gave speeches. He lobbied.
What's lobby?
He asked people to make a law to protect the park.
But every bill he got introduced to protect this place died.
Yep, the one introduced in 1886 died in committee. 1887?
Died.
1888?
Died.
1889, 1891, 1893, all died. Timber companies wanted the forest. The wood was worth money, and they had friends in Washington. Ranchers wanted to graze sheep on the land, and plenty of congressmen thought, why should the government spend taxpayer dollars protecting a lake in the middle of nowhere that almost nobody could reach?
They wouldn't think that if they came here.
Right? But short-sighted people sometimes win, at least in the short term. And then finally, 17 years after he first stood on the rim, Steele got the right people's attention. His friend, Gifford Pinchot, the nation's top forest official, went to President Theodore Roosevelt.
Teddy! I love Teddy!
I know you do. And he said, Teddy, there's a bill to protect Crater Lake that keeps dying because the Speaker of the House won't let it come to a vote. You need to talk to him. And Roosevelt, who loved wild places, leaned on the Speaker of the House and said,
let them vote.
And then on May 22nd, 1902, President Theodore Roosevelt signed Crater Lake into the national parks, the 6th national park in the United States. All right, time for the ranger talk. The ranger started by asking if anyone knew what lived in that water besides fish.
We knew.
You knew.
The Mazama news. It's an animal that exists nowhere else on Earth. Not any lake nor river, just here.
Do you want to tell them what they look like?
They're so cute. They're orange and brown and really rough on the top. They're actually related to the rough-skinned newt, a highly poisonous salamander that can be found all across the Pacific Northwest.
The Mazama newt evolved specifically for this landscape. They live in this super clear water and they move slowly through the shallows, hunting invertebrates.
Their skin produces tetrodotoxin, that's the same poison as pufferfish, enough to make any predator very sick, so nothing can touch them.
Well, that's the interesting part. The Mazama newt doesn't have as much poison as its cousin, the rough-skinned newt. Nothing that evolved in this lake could touch them, but then, dun dun dun,
humans messed it all up.
13 years after this place got protected, the park introduced fish to the lake, and some signal crayfish tagged along. These were big, aggressive, fast-breeding crustaceans.
And the crayfish eat newt eggs.
They eat larvae, the babies, before they can defend themselves. They compete for the same food, the same shoreline habitat.
The ranger put it this way. Imagine you had a mean neighbor who moved in and raided your refrigerator, took all your food, and ate your children.
What? Your children?
And you couldn't leave because this is the only place you've ever existed on Earth. So why don't they just take the crayfish out?
That's the question, and the answer isn't simple. It's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service who has the authority to designate the newt as an endangered species. Doing that would unlock a lot of funding, protections, and allow scientists to collaborate on solutions. The Fish and Wildlife Service makes their decisions based on scientific evidence, and I think in this case it's pretty clear that humans made this problem.
And humans have the responsibility to clean it up. If they could just see the cutie little faces, they would help them.
Have you guys heard of a petition?
What's a petition?
Well, the scientists at the government have to make their decisions based on facts and data, but we can help them by showing how much people care. A petition is a letter explaining the problem, and then you ask other people to sign their names at the bottom.
Like huge team for the newts. We want to show the government how much we care about this place. We should get 1,000 signatures like Steel wrote 1,000 letters. Let's do it here. Let's ask everyone to sign.
So that's what we did. We walked around Crater Lake with a QR code on a homemade flyer.
Excuse me, do you have a second? There's a newt that only lives in this lake, and it's almost extinct because of invasive crayfish, and we're collecting signatures to send to the Fish and Wildlife Service.
Most people said yes immediately. Some asked questions. A few had never even heard of the Mazama newt at all. And some people said no. But that's okay. You can't win them all. At the lake, we got like 20 signatures. And then we started to go viral in the Pacific Northwest Reddit. And hundreds more signed up.
But that's not 1,000.
Not yet. But maybe the good folks listening to this podcast will add their names to the list. I'll include the link to the petition in the show notes.
So what are the people doing to protect the newts today?
Well, the High Desert Museum was the first place to take Mazama newts into human care. Nobody had ever kept this species in captivity before. They were figuring it out as they went, and they forged a partnership with the Oregon Zoo in Portland. The Oregon Zoo made a film about their conservation program, and I want to play you part of it because it explains exactly what's at stake and exactly why your petition matters.
In 2008, newts occupied about 50% of the shoreline, and most recently, we found that they now occupy only 2 to 5% of the shoreline. We get strong evidence that the newts are in trouble and that we should be doing something now to try to conserve this population before it blinks out of existence.
Out of existence?
Well, here's how the crayfish problem actually works.
Crayfish have multiple negative effects on Mazama newts. For one, they compete for the same space. They also compete for the same foods. And also, crayfish can prey on Mazama newts directly.
And once they're in, they're almost impossible to get out.
Removing non-native crayfish once they're established is really hard. And that's why we're interested in preserving the Mazama newt, possibly even outside the lake, for long enough that we can figure that crayfish problem out.
Nobody's ever kept this unique newt in human care before. This population of newts is right on the brink of going extinct, so the time to try to do something is now.
But if you take them and just release them back into Crater Lake right now, what would happen?
The crayfish would eat them.
Right, the crayfish eat them. All that work, and you drop them right back in with those big bullies that literally eat them for lunch, the problem is not solved. So that's what the museum and the zoo are doing, keeping the newts alive outside the lake, trying to buy time while someone figures out how to fix the core problem.
It's going to be sleepless nights. It's going to be a lot of data collection. Every one of us that work in this lab, this is what we're dedicating our lives to. It's a lot of pressure. We know that we could potentially have the last of a species in this lab. My hope for the future is that we're successful in propagating the Mazama newt and reintroducing them to Crater Lake, and that we're not needed anymore.
I hope they win.
In a lot of cases, people want to keep their jobs, but in this case, the scientists would win if they don't have a job anymore.
Why?
Well, because when the crayfish problem is solved and the newts can go back into Crater Lake, do we need to preserve them outside the lake anymore?
No.
No, but none of this can happen until the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service takes action.
So that's what you guys can do to help.
Sign the petition at roamschoolfamily.com. We're hoping to get 1,000 names for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, asking them to officially name the Mazama newt an endangered species so that the newts here at the High Desert Museum and the ones at the Oregon Zoo can finally come home. And that's our request to you. Sign your name and tell one person. That's how Steel did it. One letter at a time. This episode was recorded on the traditional lands of the Klamath tribes, who have been the stewards of Giwas since time immemorial. Long before it was a national park. Long before anyone named it. Long before a teenager in Kansas read about it on a sandwich paper. Learn about their continuing work and connection to this place at klamathtribes.org.